Have you ever considered a different way of looking at your finances for the new year? Today, we will be talking to the Vice President of a global financial institution who will help us get the new year off to a great financial start. Stay tuned.
Flying high, flying high, flying on broken wings. Flying high, flying high, flying on broken wings. I'm flying high, flying on broken wings. I'm flying
We're here today with Sharon Hardesty, Vice President of a global financial institution right here in our community. Sharon has over 37 years of experience in banking and finance and wears many hats. To name just two, she is the Commissioner for the City of Newark Zoning and Planning Board of Adjustment, and she currently is the President of North Jersey Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a public service sorority where we both serve. Sharon has been a Delta for 24 years. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Sharon, many people don't know what goes into the field of banking. We all come to the bank and we make our deposits and we leave, and that's pretty much the extent of it for us. But you, having been in banking for 37 years or more, I'm sure you know more about that than we do. So why don't you share with us some of the things that you like about your job, and then maybe a little bit about those things that you don't particularly care for.
First of all, I love my job. It gives me a chance to really help individuals meet and reach their goals, not just their financial goals, but the goals that they have in life, whether it's education, owning a home, wanting to travel the world. We just show them that they just have to have a plan.
And so when you say having a plan, now that's important because, you know, many times we think about banking, as I said, just going there to make our deposits, but we're not really thinking about plans. Is that something that you help your customers with, putting together some kind of plan?
Yes. First of all, we encourage all of our customers, just like you go to the doctor, you need to get a financial checkup annually with your financial advisor. Budget is usually that word, it's seen as a negative word, but a budget is not to constrain you. It's really a roadmap to help you to get to where you're trying to go in your life and in all your goals. So yes, we help them to build a plan for now and for the future.
Wow. So, you know, you're speaking of budgeting and you're saying that budgeting is that word that we call that B word, right? And so when I think of budgeting, I'm thinking household and just doing what we do in our homes, right? Where we sit down, we write our budget, we got to go do this time and that the next time. But I never really connected budgeting to banking. So can you walk us through a little bit about perhaps what one of those budgeting sessions might look like if we were going to the bank and saying, well, can you help me out with budgeting? What would that look like?
First, we let you analyze your spending. And a great way to do that, a lot of us use our debit card or you go over your bank statement just to see where your dollars are going to. Then we look at what your goals are. Like, what would you like to accomplish? So your budget needs to line up with your values. So it's really like a roadmap. So, you know, like I said, whatever your values are, that's where you want to place your emphasis as far as your budget is concerned. So,
wow, never really thought about it that way. And I'm hoping that our viewers will be able to get something out of this, because that's not the kind of conversation we're accustomed to having when we go to the bank.
Yes.
Right? So we just get in those lines and we do what we have to do and we go back home. But thinking about banking, let's think about banking a different way now. One unique experience we've all had has been the pandemic. So when we think about the pandemic, we have to think about it in terms of how it has impacted everybody, right? So how has the pandemic impacted banking?
Okay, so the pandemic had its pros and cons. So in the banking industry, of course, sales and productivity decreased as far as the pandemic was concerned. A lot of people had lost their jobs or were temporarily unemployed. So the bank has done some great things. They instituted 0% interest on credit cards to give people an opportunity to catch up with their paying their bills. They also reduced overdraft fees and things of that nature. Interest rates right now are at an all-time low as far as the housing market is concerned. So they've really looked at ways that they could really help households. And I love that part because it made the bank more empathetic instead of just being sales and productivity driven. So we've actually become great partners during the pandemic. Mobile banking, internet banking, all of that has introduced our customers to new ways to even doing their banking more efficiently. So a lot of great things have come out of this pandemic experience, and I think it'll impact banking even further going into the future.
Okay, so is there any part of banking that has become partners to this whole Zoom experience? So in other words, when you have your banking meetings and so forth, has that been something that bankers have been doing, like working on Zoom for their meetings and that sort of thing?
Oh yes, everything now is done online. Not only meetings, lots of back offices are actually still teleworking from home. And that has been a whole new experience that has helped them with their households, with childcare. So here at the branches is still, face-to-face interactions that need to take place. But where that doesn't need to be the case to keep all the employees safe, we're definitely using Zoom and Google Meets, everything to keep up with what we need to do without people physically needing to be present.
So let's talk just a little bit now about your position as vice president of the bank. When we think about that kind of position, we don't always see people who look like us in those positions. Yet here you are.
Yes.
And you've been in this field for over 37 years. So if we have young people out there who are listening right now and saying, wow, I want to be just like her, what do they need to do to be just like you in the banking as a vice president?
Right. I think first people have to be true to themselves. And in any industry, you need to get yourself a mentor and a sponsor. Both are equally as important. Mentor is someone that's going to guide you through the ropes, give you advice and tips on how to get ahead in this business environment. We've actually created, and I was one of the initiators of a Black Employee Network here. And that's what we do. We help to build them professionally and individually. And secondly, you need a sponsor. Sponsor is definitely different than a mentor. You need someone in that boardroom that is making the decisions that can get you to where you want to go. And so that's equally as important. So that comes with networking with your colleagues. You have to show your worth and never be afraid to speak up and let people know what you bring to the table. And that sponsor can be priceless.
Wow. Wow, that's interesting. I never really thought of it that way. So did you have a mentor and a sponsor?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay.
One of my former managers, and she was an African American, she was definitely a mentor, and she gave us the opportunity, gave me the opportunity to move up in the banking world, and I've in turn paid that forward. I usually train and coach my young employees and cross-train. Knowledge is power. So I say whether you have that position or not, if you learn what goes into it, that can translate into not just here at our bank, but that goes with you wherever you go.
Okay, so that all sounds really interesting. So of course, it seems to me that if you're vice president of the bank, the next step would be the president of the bank. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not looking to make that step. However, it could lead into other avenues. So I like the learning and development world. I'm a teacher at heart, so I really like that aspect of it. And also I'm on the community reenactment team where we get to go out into the community, teach financial literacy, help businesses learn how to make a business plan, how to borrow. So that part of it I love. I love being able to help my customers develop all the ways that they can reach their goals.
Right, okay. So when we come back, we're going to talk a little more into our audience. Hang in there with us, because when we come back, Sharon is going to give us some tips to help us to supercharge what we're doing with our finances. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Flying on Broken Wings with Dr. PGB Hudson. I'm your host, Dr. Phyllis Bivens Hudson, and welcome back, Sharon Hardesty. So, Sharon, in our last segment, we talked a little bit about finances and budgeting and all those things that most viewers don't know about when we go to banks, right? Most of your customers. But I want to talk now just a little bit about some tips. We know that there's some tips that you can give us to kind of help our viewers supercharge their finances for 2022. We've been in 2021, and we know that many of us have made some mistakes. Many of us have been able to do some saving, but many of us have not because of the pandemic. So what can you tell us regarding some tips that we could help?
Okay, so January is a great time to just start with a plan. It's never too late to start. So my first tip would be create a budget and just try to stick with it. Mm-hmm. So analyze what your spending was the previous year and look at where your priorities are. So a budget really focuses on your priorities to reaching your goals. Mm-hmm. So tip number 2, I would say, is write down your goals. There's power in writing it down so that you could see it, that you could stay on focus, and it really give you the why behind what you are doing in terms of your budget. So write that plan down. The third tip I would give is that you need to either save or invest. So you gotta have a savings or an investment plan. And they always say, start with paying yourself first. So don't do all your spending and then see what I have left over to save. Mm-hmm. You have to start with that savings first. Then create your budget around what you have left and how you prioritize how you have to spend. And investing, you have to let your money work for you. So one thing right now we know in the banking industry is interest rates are really, really low. So maybe not putting it all in a savings and CD now may not be your best option. So you really need to go in and talk with your financial advisor to see what your options are as far as your savings and your investments goals go. That money may be better spent with paying down debt right now while the interest rates are really low. And the fourth tip that I would give is you have to educate yourself, financial literacy. Knowing about finances is really how you're going to move further. So do a little research. There's all kind of podcasts and books available that will really help you move your finances to the next level. So those would be the 4 tips that I would just really give individuals just to get started, supercharge.
Wow, that's great. That's awesome. Creating a budget. Writing down your specific financial goals, building a habit around saving or investing, and investing in your own financial literacy. So I'm the little guy on the block.
Yes.
I come to you. How do I start that conversation even? I'm walking into the bank and I don't have a lot of money, and that's for real. I don't have a lot of money. So I walk into the bank and I say to you, I've seen your tips. I watched the episode where you talked about those 4 tips. What do I do? What do I say to you? How do you get me started? Because I just have a little bit of money.
Right. So we help to do the work with that. We every client that sits down, we have a financial conversation with you, and it just starts with currently, are you renting, owning? What's your credit like? When's the last time you checked your credit score? What are some of your goals? What are your short-term goals, long-term goals? Are you currently saving anything for retirement? So based on your answers, we help you to build a plan based on where you told us your number 1 financial priorities are. If it's going to school, we can talk about best ways to finance your education. So really all you have to do is start with making that trip to the bank. You need to get a relationship with a bank. Sometimes people hop from bank to bank depending on what they're offering, but you can't beat that personal relationship with your banker because they're really going to put you on the right road to financial growth.
Wow, that's really interesting information, and I think it's really good information for our viewers because many of us just don't think this way, and it may be why many of us are in the situations that we're in. But let me ask one more question about that. When you talk about coming into the bank and having that conversation and building that relationship, is there a minimal amount of money that I need to come in to have that conversation and set up this savings and create this budget that you're talking about?
No, our financial consultations are free. It's our service to you to help you look for all the ways to meet your financial goals. So most accounts have a minimum of like $20, $25 to really get started. And that's with retirement accounts as well. So it really doesn't take much. It just takes that effort of coming in and say, I'm ready to start. And it's steps, gradual. So we start you where you are at this point, and you'll be surprised how your money can grow. And then you can look for investing in other ways.
So big banks versus small banks. I know that your bank is a global institution, but a global institution is different, I think, right, than just saying a big bank versus small bank. Talk a little bit about that. Which one do you think that you would have people go to?
Okay, my answer to that is really not the size of the bank. It has to do with your personal banker that's at the bank. Yes, we're a global bank. We're in many countries, but I've been here for 35 years. So I'm committed to my customers and my community and knowing them and wanting the best for them. So that's really the main focus. We all offer pretty much the same services. And sometimes people think the bigger bank, they're going to get lost, but it really depends on your banker. So that's why it's really important to go where you're comfortable and establish a relationship with your banker, and that makes all the difference in the world.
Wow, so I feel like I've done something right because I've been at my bank for, oh my God, for years and years and years. In fact, it started out as New Jersey Bank, and then it changed, and then it changed again, and so I'm still there. And so now what I'm hearing is that I've done a good thing by maintaining my status with that particular bank. So that's good. I'm glad that I've done that. So now we have one more question that we'd like you to tackle. And that question is around student loans. We know that there's a temporary moratorium on student loans. But there are people out there, I'm sure, who are sitting in this audience and thinking, can she talk to us a little bit about the student loans and the student and how they're doing with the finances and what's going on with the moratorium and so forth and so on. So give us a little information around that.
Yes, the moratorium has been extended to May 2022, but this is a great time for those who are able to double up on their payments if they can, or pay as much as you can, because right now at the 0% interest, it's all going to principal. So it's a win-win situation. You'll owe less and you're not paying any finance charge on it right now. And always, whether it's the bank or student loan, go in and talk with your creditors. They can make all sort of repayment arrangements that are comfortable for you. The best thing is to do is to keep paying what you can. And just if you're not able to, have that conversation so that it protects your credit rating.
Okay, so I hope our viewers got that. That's important because, you know, students are going back to school. We have students who are going to be starting school in September. So we want to make sure that they know exactly what it is that they need to be doing. And we have come to the end of our show. However, we'd like to give Sharon an opportunity to share any other tips, tidbits, or information that she feels like our viewers might be interested in.
Yes, I would just like to end that there is a path to financial wellness. So you really want to just start with discovery. Make sure you're checking in on your finances annually. Create that plan, that budget, that roadmap, and stick to it. You want to implement it, and you have to monitor it to see whether you're on the right track.
And thank you, Sharon, so much for being with us today. And thank you to our viewers for being here with us today as well. From RLS Media, I am Dr. Phyllis Bivens Hudson. Until next time, keep flying on your own wings.
Flying on broken wings. Flying